Disclaimer: this program contains graphic descriptions of real crimes. Viewer discretion is advised. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. He thought he had finally won his happy ending. After years of scraped paychecks and quiet sacrifices, Mark Benson's hands trembled as he held the ticket that would change everything. $3 million. For the first time in his life, hope felt real. He dreamed of a home, of security, of sharing this miracle with the woman he loved. But just 2 weeks later, Mark was gone. His body lay cold in a morgue, and the same wife he once called his blessing was cashing in his life insurance. What happened between those 2 weeks is a story of love twisted into greed, and a lottery win that became a death sentence. Mark Benson wasn't the type you'd expect to see on the front page of a newspaper. At 47, he lived quietly, working long shifts as an auto mechanic in a small Ohio town. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't reckless. He lived for the simple joys: fishing trips, football games on Sundays, and grilling burgers for friends in his backyard. His wife Claire, however, was different. Ambitious, restless, and sometimes bitter about their financial struggles, she often pushed Mark to dream bigger. But Mark was content, that is, until fate dropped a miracle into his lap. On a cold February evening, he stopped at a gas station for a soda. On a whim, with spare change jingling in his pocket, he bought a scratch-off ticket. He almost tossed it in the trash, but as he scratched away the silver coating, his eyes widened, his heart racing. He had hit the jackpot, $3 million. Mark thought his life had just begun. In reality, it had just begun to unravel. Mark wanted to use the money responsibly, pay off debts, buy a modest home, maybe retire a few years early. He even talked about putting some aside for his nieces' and nephews' education. But Claire, she had other plans. Friends noticed her browsing luxury cars, designer handbags, and vacation packages within days of the announcement. When Mark hesitated, she grew impatient. One friend later recalled Claire saying, "This money is my ticket out. I've wasted too many years scraping by." Mark was unnerved. He confided to his brother James, "This win feels like a blessing, but Claire's already spending money we don't even have yet. I don't like where this is going." And then, in a move Mark never saw, Claire quietly updated his life insurance, doubling the pay out to $1. $5 million. On the night of March 3rd, neighbors overheard raised voices from the Benson home. Mark had just discovered that Claire had put a down payment on a luxury SUV without asking him. He was furious. He warned her that if things didn't change, he might leave. Hours later, silence fell over the house. By morning, Mark was slumped in his recliner, unresponsive. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead at 47. The cause. At first glance, it looked like a heart attack, but his brother James didn't buy it. Mark was healthy. He told doctors, "Something's not right." He pushed for an autopsy, something Claire tried to stop. The results shocked everyone. Mark hadn't died of natural causes. His body contained lethal levels of antifreeze. Someone had poisoned him. Investigators searched the house and found an open sports drink bottle in the fridge. Tests revealed it had been laced with ethylene glycol, the sweet, tasting but deadly chemical in antifreeze. When detectives traced local purchases, they discovered Claire had bought 2 gallons of antifreeze only weeks before her husband's death. As police dug deeper, a chilling pattern emerged. Claire had motive, millions in combined lottery and life insurance money. She had opportunity. She lived with him, prepared his meals, and was the last to see him alive. Detectives also found damning digital evidence. On Claire's laptop were searches like "how to poison with antifreeze," How long until antifreeze kills? And can life insurance deny pay out after suspicious death? Coworkers reported that Claire had been bragging before Mark's death, saying, "My life's about to change forever. Just wait." Mark's miracle win, investigators realized, had become her motive for murder. On April 10th, Claire was arrested at a local boutique while shopping. Witnesses said she looked calm, even smug, as officers handcuffed her. In interrogation, she denied everything. She claimed Mark must have ingested the antifreeze by accident. Maybe he grabbed the wrong bottle in the garage. But detectives knew better. The evidence was overwhelming. The life insurance policy change, the antifreeze purchase, the online searches, the spending spree. Piece by piece, the puzzle revealed a portrait of cold calculation. The trial drew national attention. Headlines screamed, "Lottery curse, wife accused of poisoning $3 million winner." Prosecutors painted Claire as a woman consumed by greed, who saw her husband not as a partner, but as an obstacle to the lifestyle she craved. They presented her internet searches, financial records, and witness testimony about her behavior. The defense tried to shift blame. They suggested Mark drank too much and may have accidentally consumed the antifreeze himself. But when jurors saw a text Claire had sent to a friend 3 days before Mark's death, "Soon I'll have everything I deserve, just wait," the courtroom gasped. The jury deliberated for only 6 hours. Their verdict, guilty of first-degree murder and insurance fraud. Claire Benson was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Mark's brother James told reporters, Mark thought winning the lottery was a blessing, but it brought out the darkest part of someone he trusted with his life. The $3 million was tied up in court battles for years. Eventually, much of it was awarded to Mark's family. Claire would never see a dime. Mark Benson believed his life had finally turned around, but his story became a chilling reminder that sudden fortune can attract envy, greed, and deadly betrayal. For Mark, the lottery win wasn't a dream come true. It was the spark that lit the fuse of his own destruction. Mark Benson's funeral was supposed to be about grief. Instead, whispers filled the air. People weren't only mourning his death. They were questioning it. His wife, Claire, stood at the graveside, dressed in black. She wept loudly, almost too loudly. Friends later recalled her tears felt like a performance, like she wanted the town to see her pain rather than feel it. But behind the scenes, Claire was already making phone calls, asking insurance companies how long it would take to process Mark's policy. She hadn't even collected his death certificate yet, and then came the autopsy results. Doctors found ethylene glycol, the chemical compound in antifreeze, coursing through Mark's blood, not a trace amount, a lethal dose, enough to stop his kidneys, shut down his heart, and end his life slowly and painfully. The coroner determined the poison had been consumed over several days. It hadn't been one accidental sip. Someone had been dosing Mark's drinks repeatedly until his body couldn't take any more. Investigators checked the Benson home. In the fridge, they found a half-empty sports drink bottle. It looked normal, but when tested, it revealed antifreeze mixed with liquid, sweet, deadly, and that's when suspicion shifted from possibility to certainty. Detectives pieced together Claire's movements. Weeks before Mark's death, she purchased 2 gallons of antifreeze from a local auto shop. The clerk remembered her. She had joked, "My husband's a mechanic, but I'm the one buying the car stuff now." They also uncovered something chilling on her computer. Search history entries that read like a confession. How to make antifreeze taste sweet. How much antifreeze to kill a man. Life insurance pay. Out after spouse dies suspiciously. Each search was time-stamped. And every timestamp lined up with the days leading to Mark's death. Detectives interviewed Claire. At first, She stuck to her performance. Mark was stressed after winning the lottery. She told them. Maybe he drank something in the garage by mistake, but her behavior didn't match her words. Witnesses reported seeing her celebrating with friends after Mark's death, talking about vacations she planned to take. One salon worker recalled Claire saying, "This money was meant for me. He was never going to spend it right." And then came the receipts. Investigators found that, just 3 days after Mark died, Claire had paid in full for the luxury SUV she'd placed a down payment on. She had also made large purchases of jewelry and clothes, all with money that hadn't even cleared from Mark's insurance. The picture was clear. Claire wasn't grieving, she was cashing in. Mark's brother James refused to let the case fade. He spoke to detectives daily, pressing them to dig deeper. Mark didn't deserve this. He said, "She killed him for money. Don't let her get away with it." Police listened, and the more they uncovered, the more Claire's facade cracked. Neighbors described seeing her dump containers in the trash in the days before Mark collapsed. A co-worker testified that she had been bragging about a new life just weeks earlier, and financial records showed that her attempts to collect the dollar one, $5 million life insurance, began less than 48 hours after Mark's death. It wasn't just suspicious, it was calculated. On April 10th, 6 weeks after Mark's sudden death, Claire Benson was arrested while shopping at a boutique. Witnesses described her as calm, almost smug, as if she believed money could shield her from justice. She was charged with first-degree murder, insurance fraud, and financial crimes tied to her husband's death. But this was just the beginning. The trial would expose the darkest side of her greed and reveal to the world how far she had planned to go to trade her husband's life for luxury. Claire was behind bars. But her defense team was already spinning a story that could convince a jury she was nothing more than a grieving widow, and Mark's death was a tragic accident. Would the evidence hold, or would she walk free, millions richer? The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled the back rows. Cameras flashed outside the courthouse steps. The headline had already spread across the nation. Lottery curse millionaire's wife accused of poisoning him for payout. For many, it sounded like a tabloid headline. But for Mark Benson's family, this wasn't sensationalism. It was their fight for justice. Claire Benson entered in a navy blue blazer, her hair pulled tight, her face expressionless. She didn't look like a grieving widow. She looked like a woman preparing for battle. The prosecutor wasted no time. He painted a picture of betrayal so cold it silenced the room. "This case is about greed," he began. "A man won a miracle, and the woman who vowed to love him till death do us part made sure death came quickly." He laid out the evidence: Claire's antifreeze purchase, her internet searches, her rush to cash in life insurance, her sudden shopping spree. Each point hit harder than the last. The jury leaned forward, listening. But Claire's lawyers weren't about to let the case look so simple. They argued that Mark's death was a tragic accident. They suggested he may have confused antifreeze with another drink in the garage. They emphasized his occasional drinking habits. They painted Claire as a loyal wife unfairly targeted because of money. She loved him. Her attorney told the jury, "This is a witch hunt built on assumptions, not facts." Then came the witnesses. The store clerk testified that Claire purchased 2 gallons of antifreeze just weeks before Mark's death. He remembered her clearly because she had laughed about buying car stuff her mechanic husband never used. The medical examiner revealed Mark's toxicology report: lethal levels of antifreeze, consumed over several days, not a mistake, a slow, intentional poisoning. The computer expert showed her Google history. How much antifreeze to kill a man? Can life insurance deny pay out after poisoning? The jury gasped. The most haunting moment came when the prosecutor revealed a text message Claire had sent to a friend just 3 days before Mark collapsed. "Soon I'll have everything I deserve. Just wait." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Claire sat stone-faced, refusing to react. Mark's brother James took the stand. His voice cracked as he told the jury Mark trusted her. He thought they were finally going to have the life they dreamed of. Instead, she took it all away. He deserved better. His testimony wasn't just about facts. It was raw emotion. The jury saw the pain, the betrayal, the family's desperate need for justice, and then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Against her lawyer's advice, Claire took the stand. She spoke with a calm, almost chilling composure. "I loved my husband. She said I would never hurt him. She insisted Mark must have accidentally ingested the antifreeze himself. She claimed the internet searches were taken out of context, just curiosity." But her performance faltered under cross-examination. When the prosecutor pressed her about the SUV purchase, the vacations she planned, and the insurance calls she made within hours of his death, her answers grew shaky. And then came the final question. "Mrs. Benson, if you loved him, why did you text your friend, 'Soon I'll have everything I deserve,' 3 days before he died?" Claire froze. She had no answer. The courtroom fell silent. The prosecution rested its case. The defense scrambled to keep Claire's story alive. The jury now had to decide, was this the tragic mistake of a grieving wife, or the cold calculation of a woman who saw her husband's lottery win as her golden ticket to freedom? The verdict would shake the town and reveal whether justice would finally be served. The jury room door closed. 12 strangers now held the weight of justice in their hands. For hours they debated. Was this a grieving wife wrongly accused, or a woman who poisoned the man she vowed to love, all for money? The evidence was damning. The antifreeze purchase, the toxicology report, the Google searches, the insurance calls, the SUV. But the defense clung to doubt. Could it really be proven beyond all question that Claire had slipped the poison into Mark's drink? The jury wrestled, but when they reread that text, "Soon I'll have everything I deserve," the scales tipped. On the 4th day of deliberation, the jury filed back into the courtroom. The crowd held its breath. The foreman stood. His voice trembled, but his words thundered. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder." Gasps echoed through the room. Claire's face stone, cold throughout the trial, cracked for the first time. Her lips tightened, her eyes wet with rage, not sorrow. She shook her head as if the jury had betrayed her. Mark's brother James broke down in tears. He gripped his sister's hand, whispering, "We got him justice, Mark. We finally got you justice." The judge's gavel struck. Life in prison, no possibility of parole. Claire's chance at millions evaporated in a single sentence. She wouldn't spend her life draped in luxury. She would spend it behind steel bars, remembered not as a lottery winner's wife, but as the woman who turned greed into murder. News outlets exploded with coverage. The lottery curse strikes again. From jackpot to jail, wife killed husband weeks after $3 million win. The story spread far beyond Ohio. People debated how money could twist love into hatred. Talk shows dissected every detail. Was Claire always dangerous, or did sudden fortune unlock her darkest side? For Mark's family, the media frenzy meant nothing. What mattered was that the truth had been told. The $3 million winnings became tied up in lawsuits for years. In the end, most of the money went to Mark's relatives, who promised to use it for the family's future college tuition, medical bills, stability. Claire never saw a dime. Behind prison walls, her new life became one of cold concrete, routine counts, and silence. James Benson later told reporters, Mark thought he'd finally caught his miracle. He thought the money would give them a future. Instead, it exposed the evil in the person he trusted most. If there's a lesson, here it's that money can't buy loyalty, and sometimes it costs everything. Mark Benson believed he had finally broken free of hardship, but his story became one of the most chilling warnings in true crime history. Sudden fortune doesn't always change your life for the better. Sometimes it invites betrayal from the person sleeping beside you. For Claire, the lottery wasn't a dream. It was the motive. For Mark, it wasn't a blessing. It was the price of his life. The gavel had fallen. The verdict was in. Claire Benson would spend the rest of her life behind bars. But even with justice served, the story didn't end. In many ways, it had just begun. Within days of sentencing, major networks aired specials about the case. Documentaries dissected every detail: the winning ticket, the toxic drinks, the insurance payout, and Claire's chilling composure. Headlines called it the lottery curse. Reporters compared it to other tragedies that followed: sudden jackpots, winners robbed, betrayed, even murdered. For many, Mark Benson's case became the most haunting example of how fast good fortune could turn fatal. Claire's name trended on social media. Some painted her as a symbol of greed gone unchecked. Others, shockingly, sent her fan mail, captivated by her cold-blooded persona. The contrast was chilling. Mark's family wasn't interested in fame or headlines. They wanted healing, but healing proved complicated. His brother James became the face of the family's fight for justice. Every interview he gave was a reminder of what had been stolen. It wasn't just Mark's life, he told one reporter. It was our future as a family. He was supposed to be the one at Christmas dinners, laughing on the porch, fishing on Saturdays. She took that away. The lottery winnings, once seen as a miracle, had become tainted. Even as funds were distributed to nieces and nephews, every dollar carried the weight of Mark's death. Inside prison, Claire showed no remorse. Guards described her as cold, calculating, and manipulative. She often bragged to other inmates about the case, claiming she was set up, and that one day she would be vindicated. But in reality, she had lost everything: the money, the freedom, the life she thought she deserved. Her story became a cautionary tale whispered in prison halls: how greed can buy you diamonds one day and steel bars the next. Years later, journalists still revisit the Benson case whenever another lottery tragedy surfaces. For true crime enthusiasts, it's become a touchstone, a story of betrayal that proves sometimes the greatest danger isn't a stranger in the shadows. It's the person sitting at your kitchen table. The phrase lottery curse entered everyday conversation, and Mark Benson's name became a haunting reminder of what can happen when love and greed collide. But whispers about the case didn't stop with the verdict. Some believe Claire may have hinted at darker secrets, things that never came out in trial. Prison rumors suggest she confessed to fellow inmates that poisoning Mark wasn't her first attempt, only the first one that worked. Was there more to the story than anyone knew? The trial was over, the sentence handed down. Claire Benson would spend the rest of her life behind bars. But if you thought the story ended there, you'd be wrong, because even behind prison walls, whispers of the case refused to die. Inmates who crossed paths with Claire told reporters eerie stories. Some claimed she bragged about fooling investigators for weeks. Others said she admitted the poisoning wasn't her first attempt, only the first one that worked. One inmate swore Claire confessed to trying smaller doses earlier, hiding them in soups and drinks, but Mark survived long enough to keep her from suspicion. Was it idle prison gossip, or was it Claire finally revealing the full scope of her cruelty? Outside prison, theories swirled. Some insisted Claire hadn't acted alone, that a secret lover or friend had helped her plan the murder, only to disappear once the investigation closed in. Others believed she may have been plotting even before the lottery win, using the ticket as a convenient cover. And then there were those who saw the case as part of a bigger pattern, the so-called lottery curse. They pointed to other winners who met sudden, violent ends. To them, Mark Benson wasn't just unlucky. He was doomed the moment he scratched That winning ticket. Years later, true crime documentaries, podcasts, and YouTube channels still return to Mark's story. Each retelling breathes new life into the night, reminding the world how quickly fortune can become fatal. For Mark's family, the attention is a double-edged sword. They're grateful his name is remembered, but every headline, every documentary reopens the wound. His brother James once told a reporter, "People talk about the lottery curse like it's a legend, but to us, it's not a curse. It's Claire, she made a choice, and Mark paid for it with his life." Mark Benson thought the lottery would buy him freedom. Instead, it cost him everything. His death has become a haunting warning. Sudden wealth doesn't always bring happiness. Sometimes it brings betrayal from the person you trust most. Behind bars, Claire still breathes, but her freedom is gone, Mark is gone, and the world is left with a chilling reminder of what greed can do. The years have passed, but the story of Mark and Claire Benson refuses to fade. Even today, it lingers like a ghost, retold in documentaries, dissected in podcasts, and whispered in internet forums dedicated to true crime's most twisted betrayal. Because Mark's story wasn't just about one murder, it tapped into something bigger, the unsettling truth that sometimes the most dangerous threat doesn't come from a stranger lurking in the dark, but from the person sharing your bed. Some detectives who worked the Benson case admit it still haunts them. One retired officer said, "I've worked murders for drugs, for revenge, for jealousy, but this, killing a man for lottery winnings and an insurance payout, it showed me just how far greed can reach." Files from the investigation are now used in police training academies, an example of how financial motives can be masked until the smallest details, like a search history or a purchase receipt, crack the case wide open. The lottery curse remains a powerful hook for headlines. Each time a new lottery winner makes the news, Mark's story resurfaces as a chilling warning. Television specials replay the images, Mark's smiling face with his oversized check, and Claire's cold stare in a courtroom just weeks later. The contrast is striking. One image represents hope, the other betrayal, and every time the story is retold, new viewers ask the same question: did Claire act alone? Was there more to her plan than the world ever discovered? For Mark's family, the years haven't dulled the pain. Holidays are reminders of who's missing. Lottery commercials on television sting like salt on an open wound. James Benson, his brother, has become almost a caretaker of Mark's legacy. He speaks to schools about financial safety, about the risks of sudden fortune, about the importance of trusting your instincts when something feels wrong, even with those closest to you. If Mark had lived to spend that money, James once said he would have given half of it away. That's who he was, and that's why his death will never sit right with us, because he deserved joy and she stole it. Mark Benson's murder has become more than a headline. It's a cautionary tale repeated whenever someone dreams of riches. Lesson isn't that winning is dangerous. It's that sudden fortune exposes the cracks already hidden in people's hearts. For Claire, it revealed greed, entitlement, and the willingness to kill. For Mark, it revealed his fatal trust in someone who valued money more than his life. And so the story lives on, not just in case files or court records, but in the uneasy question it plants in all of us. If you struck it rich tomorrow, who could you really trust? Mark Benson's murder was not an isolated tragedy. It became a chapter in what many call the lottery curse, a chilling pattern where sudden fortune doesn't bring happiness, but devastation. And after his case made headlines, investigators and true crime followers began connecting dots. Not long after Claire's conviction, law enforcement began noticing similar patterns. Husbands, wives, even friends of lottery winners turning up dead. Under suspicious circumstances, one case in the South involved a man who won $5 million, only to be shot execution style by an acquaintance weeks later. Another in the Midwest saw a woman poisoned with cyanide-laced champagne. The killer later revealed to be her fiancé, motivated by both her winnings and her insurance policy. To many, these cases echoed Mark's story: sudden wealth, strained relationships, betrayal by someone close. Was it coincidence, or was Claire's crime an eerie template others began to follow? Journalists leaned into the idea of a lottery curse. They pointed to winners who were murdered, went bankrupt, or spiraled into addiction. Mark's story became one of the most cited examples. Experts debated on talk shows: was it truly a curse, or just human nature under pressure, greed, jealousy, and desperation, all magnified by the spotlight of sudden riches? But in true crime circles, whispers grew louder. Maybe Claire wasn't alone in her cruelty. Maybe her case wasn't just about greed. It was about the dangerous magnetism of the lottery itself. Conspiracy theorists speculated that Claire may have studied other lottery tragedies before planning her crime. Some even suggested she had contacts encouraging her, promising to help her get away with it. In exchange for a cut of Mark's winnings, no such accomplice was ever proven, but the idea lingers. Even prison rumors fueled the fire. Inmates claimed Claire once bragged, "People think I'm the first. I'm not. And I won't be the last." As the years rolled on, documentaries began grouping Mark's case alongside other grisly lottery stories. Patterns emerged: sudden fortune, strained relationships, betrayal by a loved one, violent or suspicious death. Each time a new winner was killed, Mark's name returned to the headlines. His story wasn't just remembered. It became a symbol of how money can be as dangerous as any weapon. Mark's murder began as a personal tragedy, but now it's part of a haunting legacy, a legacy that stretches far beyond Ohio, one that continues to grow each time a winner's dream ends in death. And it leaves us with a chilling question: is the lottery curse just a string of coincidences, or the deadliest jackpot of them all? By the time Claire Benson was behind bars, her husband's death had already been folded into a chilling narrative. The so-called lottery curse. News anchors repeated it, talk shows debated it, documentaries amplified it, but how much of it was real, and how much was the media weaving myth from tragedy? The myth paints the lottery as cursed. Winners end up murdered, bankrupt, addicted, or miserable. It suggests that fortune doesn't just change lives, it destroys them. Mark's case fed directly into this narrative. A man finds a miracle ticket, only to be poisoned within 2 weeks. It felt too perfect, too horrifying, almost cinematic. The myth grew stronger as reporters linked his murder to others: winners shot by family, swindled by friends, or killed by strangers who wanted a share of the jackpot. Soon, the curse wasn't just a phrase, it was a cultural belief. The reality, however, is both simpler and darker. Winning the lottery doesn't curse people, it exposes them. Sudden wealth magnifies relationships. For some, it strengthens bonds. For others, it reveals cracks. Jealousy, entitlement, and desperation rush to the surface. In case after case, experts found the same pattern: a sudden win, people around the winner demanding more, relationships strained, violence or betrayal as the final breaking point. Murder wasn't destiny, it wasn't supernatural, it was human nature, magnified by millions. Not every tragic story tied to lottery winners belongs to the curse. Some tales were exaggerated, misreported, or distorted for headlines. A winner who went bankrupt wasn't cursed. They mismanaged money. A winner who became addicted wasn't cursed. They struggled with demons long before the jackpot. But Mark's case was different. His death wasn't an accident or a slow unraveling. It was a deliberate act of murder by the one person he trusted most, and that is why his name still stands out. Even among dozens of stories, Mark Benson's murder has become one of the darkest examples of the lottery curse. Why? Because it carried every element of the myth: sudden fortune, betrayal, poison, and the wife cashing in his insurance before the dirt on his grave was settled. It wasn't chance. It wasn't coincidence. It was a reminder that sometimes the real curse is the greed living inside someone you love. The myth of the lottery curse lives on. But in Mark's case, the reality is even more terrifying. It wasn't fate that killed him. It was choice, and that makes his story not just one of most shocking, but one of the most unforgettable in true crime history. Mark Benson's murder is no longer just a case file gathering dust in Ohio. It's become something more, a cultural cautionary tale, told and retold as each new generation stares at the glowing promise of a lottery jackpot and whispers, "Remember what happened to him." Years have passed since Claire Benson was sentenced to life in prison, yet Mark's story refuses to fade. True crime podcasts, YouTube documentaries, and late-night TV specials revisit the chilling timeline: the ticket, the fight, the poison, the payout. For some, it's a tragedy. For others, it's a warning. And for many, it's proof that money doesn't just change lives. It tests them. Sociologists point to Mark's murder whenever they study the psychology of sudden wealth. Police academies use the case to show how financial motives can hide in plain sight. And for the everyday person buying a ticket, his story lingers as an uneasy reminder: winning isn't always winning. Even young viewers who stumble on Murder Book 360 or True Crime shows today are discovering Mark's case for the first time, and every time they do, the lesson cuts just as sharp. Sometimes the most dangerous gamble isn't scratching the ticket, it's trusting the person beside you when you win. Behind bars, Claire has vanished from the public eye. No more headlines, no more cameras, just the silence of a prison cell, but her shadow remains. She isn't remembered as a millionaire's wife. She's remembered as the woman who poisoned her husband's dream for cash. Mark is gone, but Claire's betrayal has made her infamous, a warning stitched forever into the dark fabric of true crime history. The so-called lottery curse may be myth, but Mark Benson's story is real. His life, his death, and the betrayal that followed stand as one of the most haunting reminders of how quickly fortune can twist into tragedy. He thought he'd found a miracle. Instead, he uncovered a nightmare. Mark Benson's story leaves us with one chilling truth: money doesn't create monsters, it only reveals the ones already hiding in plain sight. Mark Benson's story didn't end with the gavel or with Claire's prison sentence. It continues to echo through classrooms, true crime communities, and living rooms where people still wonder, what would happen if I won the lottery? Because Mark's name has become more than a case file. It's a symbol of what sudden wealth can reveal about love, trust, and betrayal. Books on true crime have devoted entire chapters to his murder. Crime shows still replay the haunting timeline: Mark smiling with his oversized check, then lying in a morgue less than 2 weeks later. Even pop culture latched on. A TV drama loosely inspired by his case portrayed a wealthy husband poisoned by his wife. The parallels weren't subtle, and viewers recognized the Benson tragedy instantly. The story has also become a staple in classrooms, used in psychology courses to explore the impact of greed, and in law schools to highlight financial motives in homicide cases. But beyond entertainment, Mark's death sparked deeper conversations. Couples began to ask each other uncomfortable questions. What would you do if I suddenly came into millions? Sociologists noticed that his case reignited debates about trust and money. Some argued that wealth doesn't corrupt. It only unmasks the corruption already there. Others pointed to Claire's actions as proof that greed can grow quickly when temptation arrives. For many, the most chilling part wasn't the lottery. It was the realization that betrayal came not from a stranger, but from a spouse. Mark's family has tried to reclaim his story from the shadow of the curse. His brother James often tells reporters, "We don't want Mark remembered just as a victim of greed. He was kind, generous, and humble. The money didn't change him, it changed her." To honor his memory, the family has established scholarships funded by what remained of the winnings. They want Mark's miracle ticket to mean something beyond tragedy. But every step forward is paired with the same question from the public. How could she do it? And that's why the Benson case refuses to die. It's not just about money. It's about human weakness. It's about betrayal so personal that it still unsettles us years later. For some, Mark's death is a cautionary tale about greed. For others, it's a reminder that trust can be the most dangerous gamble of all. And so the story lives on, not just in courts or casebooks, but in whispers, in documentaries, in the unease we feel when imagining sudden fortune. Because the truth is, the Benson case forces us all to ask, if the jackpot landed in your hands tomorrow, who could you really trust to stand beside you? Years after Claire Benson's conviction, Mark's story has taken on a second life, not just in court records or legal textbooks, but in the ever-growing world of true crime. It's not just a case anymore, it's content. Mark Benson thought he had won his miracle. Instead, his jackpot became his death sentence, and the wife who should have stood by him became the reason he's gone. Here on Murder Book 360, we uncover the darkest crimes and the betrayals that shatter lives. If this story shook you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And hit the bell so you never miss the next case we expose. Because every crime leaves a story behind. The question is, whose story will we tell next?